So as I thought about this theme of wanderings, I realized that I think about wandering in more than one way. The adjective wandering, according to the dictionary, might describe slow, aimless, or pointless movement, something that meanders, a group that is nomadic, or something or someone not keeping a sensible or rational course. But that's not the only definition. The second Merriam-Webster entry, the noun form, indicates that wandering can mean a going about from place to place, or movement away from the proper, normal, or usual course or place, both of which tend to be used in the plural, wanderings. To me, at least, these have less of an implication of aimless, pointless nature, and more of the suggestion of movement away from the norm. I think both this adjective and this noun can be true. The movement type of wandering, the noun, shifting away from what was to what could be, going from place to place, feels energizing to me. I put travel in this category, exploring new places, exploring new cultures, learning new things. The aimless, pointless type of wandering feels draining to me. It sounds a lot like being lost, like a waste of time. This isn't to say it is always negative, and I can think of times that directionless wandering ends up being beautiful, working for good, even though I might find it maddeningly frustrating in the thick of it. But I wonder if it's possible that both could happen at the same time, the adjective and the noun. From Exodus 3, verses 1 through 15. Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked, and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He said further, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. Indeed, I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them from the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the country of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. The cry of the Israelites has now come to me. I have also seen how the Egyptians oppress them. Now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? He said, I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that it is I who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. But Moses said to God, If I come to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. He said further, Thus you shall say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the Israelites, The Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my title for all generations. The aimless, pointless kind of wandering that I described earlier most often occurs to me when I am on my laptop, particularly on social media, particularly when I should be doing something else, like writing. I suddenly find myself having drifted off course, drawn almost uncontrollably by a thought or question that has popped into my head, prompted or not by the actual thing I should be working on. In these times, it feels like there really is no destination or goal, just an unhelpful sidetracking. It will likely not surprise you, friends, to know that this happened yet again as I was working on this sermon. I had an idea for what I might share, but something about it wasn't clicking. I looked once more at the Exodus text I was working with, which, mind you, had sharply changed from the original Matthew scripture I was planning to use as of a week ago. And I reread just the first verse of Exodus 3. Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. Now, just for context, a reminder that this story of Moses in Exodus is sort of a prequel to the story last week that we heard about with our friends Medad and Eldad. We are much, much earlier. Moses has not yet come to be the leader of the people. In fact, this is really Moses' entree into leadership as he witnesses God calling from this burning bush on Mount Horeb. And that's what jumped out to me. And that's where I want to draw your attention. Mount Horeb. I don't know whether Moses often took the flock beyond the wilderness, but it sounds really, really far away. And I thought, as the scholar that I like to think I am, it would be best if I showed you exactly where Mount Horeb is located, mostly because I really like maps, and I find them extremely helpful to identify the biblical location with its modern geographic area. So I went to Google, and I typed in Mount Horeb, and I found it. Except it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. Well, that's funny, I thought, and obviously not what I'm looking for, but it's only Thursday. I have plenty of time. I wonder what's in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. And wandering along I went. Is Mount Horeb and Mount Sinai the same? Now, if we can let go of the grammar, some of these questions can be helpful. Mount Horeb and Mount Sinai, okay. What is Mount Horeb in the Bible? Where is Mount Horeb Moses? Why is Mount Horeb known for trolls? I'm sorry, why is Mount Horeb known for trolls? And the wandering continued. So here's what I learned. Trolls are mythical, magical creatures that emerged from Nordic and Scandinavian folklore. They are not to be confused with leprechauns or gnomes or ogres, although they do share some qualities. Sometimes tricksters, trolls tend to be taller and human-like, perhaps with grotesque or frightening physical features, although often portrayed today as more friendly. They might be found hiding under bridges or guarding treasure and are earthy, thought to emerge from the earth itself, which is where Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, found their trolls, according to the tale. In the 1930s, caves were discovered in the area west of town near Blue Mounds, which, if you can see on the map, is kind of off to the left. And caves, like I said, caves were found there, and trolls emerged from these mounds, found the town down the road of Mount Horeb, and have stayed in Mount Horeb to protect the treasure of the town, the treasure being the beautiful landscapes, the fertile soil, and the friendly neighbors. Now for the less magical version of the story that might be a bit more relevant to my sermon. In the 1970s, a Scandinavian gift shop opened up in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, and began selling troll figurines, often displaying them on the front lawn of the store along busy Route 18 that went through the town of Mount Horeb. Those trolls drew attention, particularly interesting commentary from truckers passing through. And I wasn't going to share this, but I feel like I must. One of the quotes that I found was trucker, on the trucker thing, communicating to another trucker that they had just passed their mother-in-law on Route 18. That is terrible. I love my mother-in-law, Lottie. But anyway, these trolls drew attention and got some positive feedback. And then in the 1980s, the Highway 151 bypass was built to direct traffic around the town of Mount Horeb. Traffic was drawn away from Route 18 and the businesses in the village. You can see Route 151 highway on the southern edge of town. The village was concerned that it would fall off the radar from traffic speeding past. But they remembered the positive attention from the trolls at the Scandinavian gift shop a decade before and thought this might be a way to encourage visitors to wander off the highway into town. And it worked. Over time, wood-carved trolls started popping up around town, and the business Route 18 through town has become known as the Trollway. The town is now known as the troll capital of the world. And if you go to Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, which I think we all now want to do, you can hunt for 34 trolls found all around the village. And these are some of the trolls you might find. I wonder what would have happened if there had been a bypass around Mount Horeb, the one that Moses went to, the one that was beyond the wilderness. If Moses had other things to do and other places to be, if Moses was encouraged to stay focused only on one certain path or restricted to a certain area with the flock, if Moses had been distracted by Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok or had been FaceTiming with Jethro, he might not have taken the path that allowed him to wander right past the bush that was burning but was not consumed. He might not have declared his intent to turn and look and pay attention. He might not have removed his sandals and stood on that holiest of grounds. He might not have heard the voice of God. He might not have been part of a much greater story than could even be contained in the boundaries of his own lifetime. Biblical scholars actually don't really know where Mount Horeb was located for sure. So perhaps this place is less about geographic certainty and more about what it signifies to followers. We are at times called to go beyond the wilderness. We are at times urged by something we can't even explain to go directly through town, opting out of the easier, quicker bypass. Called by name, as Moses was. Called to go further than we might have previously explored. Called to go past that which has already shaken us or left us feeling lost and alone, surrounded by unfamiliar and untamed territory. If we take the bypass, if we take the smoother, polished, newly paved, black-oiled road around, if we are more driven by tasks and plans and ourselves, we might miss the unique offerings, the special opportunities that lay along the other road. Whether we are newly graduated from high school or college or seminary or at any other point in our life, it's easy to find ourselves tuned out with the cruise control on. But listen, God is calling. Jesus is calling. Will we follow?